We told you guys that we were going to bring you 25 most intriguing Seahawks for 2024, and we're down to the top 5 here, man. So we're excited to give you guys these 5 because although the rest of the dudes on the list that we've given you guys in prior episodes, we're all intriguing and we're passionate about some of the dudes, and there's been some great conversation. We're in the top 5, man. So we're ready to get into it. There's some great names on this list that you guys are gonna love. Bryce, you fired up for this 5, man?
Man, top 5. This is it. Final episode of the series we got going. I'm excited. Let's hit it.
Yeah, and the other thing about it, man, that means we're just days away from camp. So that even gets us a little more excited. So it's just a great combination, man. So and again, guys, if you like what you're watching, if you're watching this episode right now and you haven't subscribed, go down and hit the subscribe button and share the video, hit the like button, all that stuff, and hit the notification button. It just helps out the channel, and it just helps the algorithm with YouTube and all that stuff. And it just allows us to keep bringing you guys this content that we love bringing you guys. So coming up on the other side, the final box.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
Look at this run. What a run. Marshawn Lynch, get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leon Wilson to catch. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does.
Is it going to be another 9-8?
Mike McDonald got to finish something.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of his
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB
Want to hear? That's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawks Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
We're going to waste no time and get right into it. Number 5 on the list. This guy was our first round pick last year. We had 2 first round picks. So he was our first round pick for Seattle. We got Denver's pick at 5, take Spoon, and then we get pick 20, and we take a receiver, JSN, who we both are still excited about. We were fired up last year, but here's a guy now coming into year 2, man, and he showed some flashes of being great. What intrigues you most coming into this year about JSN?
Man, the thing that intrigues me most about JSN is I finally think JSN is going to get unlocked. I think Ryan Grubb's sitting there going, cool, I got DK. Cool. I've got a guy that was the number 1 receiver basically in college football the year before. And you look at what he did with a Roma Dunze, with a Jalen Polk, with a Jalen McMillan. And now he's going, cool, I've got a guy that was basically at the same level, if not above, than 2 of the guys that I had last year. And then I've got DK out there on one as another guy. I think we're going to see JSN moved all over the place. I think the one thing that will be intriguing is, does Ryan Grubb see Jackson Smith and Jigba as truly a slot receiver, truly as an outside receiver, or a mix? I think he's a mix. I think you can move him around, again, a chess piece, move him around, create tongue-tied. You can move him around and create matchup nightmares for that defense. And I really believe he's going to see the ball more. I think he's the true, as much as we talk about DK being a factor, and I think DK will, I think you're going to see Geno look to JSN to convert those third downs more, to be his true over the middle kind of go get the ball receiver, because JSN's route running is so smooth. You watch him get in and out of his breaks. The route he even ran, even though it was a fade against Philly for that game-winning touchdown, it's so smooth how he just gently fades away from the DB at the right moment, at the right time to create separation. I'm truly excited and intrigued to watch him be used in Ryan Grubb's offense. And I think you're going to see potentially in Seattle this year 2,000-yard receivers in DK and JSN.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. Like, just you brought up the route running. It's just so polished. He's so young to come out and just be that polished as a route runner. It's just so awesome. It's almost a luxury. And then, you take a look at, obviously DK is still your number one, but just two totally different receivers. Like you said, here's a guy that you just got two. It's almost like, obviously Lockett's now a little older. We both think that now JSN's emerging as that number two guy. Obviously Tyler might have another year left. So he's really taken on that role. And it was kind of like when DK first got here and it was like DK Tyler, but man, JSN's just different. Like he's just, man, his ceiling is so high as a receiver. And I think that's kind of the difference too, where it's like this guy, best receiver in college that year, and comes out and a first round pick and just super underutilized, right? In last year's offense. So, and we were like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong? Like, when are you going to get him a football? We discussed this in the last episode, like guys that were underutilized. We talked about Fant, we talked about DK, just everybody either underutilized or misused, or, whether it's DK not seeing the ball early, or, Noah Fant having 0 touchdowns. Here's JSN. I mean, I think in the first half of the season, there was a few games where you're like, is this guy even on the field? Right. And for a guy that is that talented. So I'm super excited to see what he can do. And just, man, I just get excited thinking about this offense with all these pieces that Grubb has to work with this year, man. And JSN is just going to be right in the mix, right there.
Oh yeah, he's going to be right in the middle of this whole thing. So it's going to be really exciting.
It's going to be awesome, man. Shoot, man, let's jump right into number 4. I talked about first round picks. This was our first round pick, number 5 overall last year. Just a baller, has emerged as a leader already on this defense. Devon Witherspoon, coming into camp now. Man, I'm so excited about 2024 for this guy. What intrigues you the most about Spoon coming into this season?
I am interested and intrigued by how Mike McDonald is going to unleash Spoon.
Right.
I think truly we didn't see all of that last year. I think, again, credit to Pete Carroll and everything he did in Seattle, but his defensive scheming wasn't up there. It was very base vanilla. Hey, we're going to play cover 3. We're going to play this. We're going to play that. Mike McDonald's going to move pieces around. He is scheming to get guys to affect the game. And, I think people are so quick to throw Spoon in the same, bowl as Kyle Hamilton and how he was used. I think we're going to see parts of that, but I think we're going to see Spoon used in other ways that maybe Kyle Hamilton wasn't. And the other thing too with Spoon is just, I think he's truly going to start taking over a leadership role on this defense. He's already shown to be a bit an alpha. And I think him and some of these other guys like Leonard Williams and, Julian Love, I think you're going to start seeing these guys come out as your new leadership group. And I think Spoon, just, the one thing I was listening to an interview with Jake Bobo on KJR in Seattle. And he basically said, like, man, like, all you ever do is hear Witherspoon talk. It doesn't matter if it's a one-on-one drill, if it's team, if it's 7-on-7 Skelly. Like, man, he makes a play. And even if he's not making the play, he's letting you know that he's going to make the next play. Like, he's just always constantly in you and digging into you and just getting under your skin and causing you issues. And I just can't wait to watch him do that on defenses for a full season. Like, because remember, last year he was hurt coming into camp and everything. I'm excited to see him do this for a full year.
He's an ultimate competitor, man. Like that, and that's the thing. Like I mentioned, we talked about, if this guy was playing 10 years ago, he'd slide right in there with the LOB, and he'd just be one of the LOBs because he just has that same dog mentality. Like it's just like, we watched that Pittsburgh game where everybody else was just like, what's going on? And here he comes and just, was it Najee Harris, just takes him and manhandles him and throws him out of bounds. We're talking about this guy, what, $180, $185 maybe?
Yep.
He plays way bigger than what he is, man. And that just shows you, who he is. That it's like, I don't care who you are, I don't care how big you are. I'm this good. You're not beating me. And I just got that dog in me. And that's what I love about Spoon. And we talked about Reek, how we both think he's going to have a bounce back year, but that's what you want to see in Reek. and it's not something maybe you can teach, but it's something maybe that can rub off on guys. When you have a guy like that emerging as a leader, that we think he's already emerging as a leader on this defense, some of that can definitely rub off on guys, right? Just like, guys on the LOB, it just kind of rallied together, whether it was Sherman or whatever. And you look at Spoon and you say, okay, you know what? If he's a leader now, that you definitely think, okay, so maybe some of that can rub off on Reek or some of the other guys. And it's just exciting. But I just can't wait to see. I love this kid. I just love him. And I just think if he stays healthy, and we've talked about that with other guys, that sky's the limit for this guy as far as his career is concerned. So yeah, I mean, amazing. It's a shoe in that he's in this top 5 of intriguing guys, right? So yeah, man. So yeah, look out for Spoon in 2024, guys. And it's not going to be hard to find him, because he's going to be everywhere. He's going to be flying around there. Let's get over to 3. Here's a guy. There's been as much controversy as you want to say, fans, him and Han, what do we do with this guy? He just continues to just do his thing and be that guy. And he's at number 3 on the list. Our quarterback right now, starting quarterback Geno Smith, obviously made a move bringing in Sam Howell. There was talk, a lot of guys were talking, do they compete? We had that conversation on the pod. What intrigues you now about Geno going into 24?
I think Geno might get to play in an offense that truly suits Geno's skill set. There was a lot of talk during the draft. We talked about it. Other shows that we know talked about it. Like, because Ryan Grubb's here, does Seattle go after and get Michael Penix, who we now know went number 8 and was out of Seattle's range? But, look at his skill set, and, he knows Ryan Grubb. One thing, my comp for Michael Penix with a lot of different people was he is Geno Smith, the left-handed version, and maybe without some of the issues that Geno had coming out of college on off the field stuff, but they're almost the same player. So I think the thing with Geno, and this is where I get very interested in Geno, is, you look at his last 2 years, his completion percentage still stayed above, in the 65 range. It was almost 70 his first year, 64.7 this last year. He turned the ball over less last year. He only turned it over 9 times through the air. He only threw 20 touchdowns, but he did miss 2 games. So I think the touchdown total might have gone up a little bit. His QBR was still 92 overall. Like, he's not digressing as much as people want to allude to. Like, yes, they go in and get Sam Howell. Seattle's thinking about the future. Geno's not a spring chicken. He's 33. But Geno also basically sat for 5 years where he didn't see the field. So when I look at Geno Smith, I really look at, I think he's truly going to extend in Ryan Grubb's offense. And I think there's going to be discussions on Geno Smith getting an extension.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's another one of those years, like, Ryan Grubb, Mike McDonald, because I think if Pete was here and the same staff, if it was exact same, I think you'd sort of kind of know exactly what would happen, right? Based on, Shane Waldron's vanilla offense and everything that everybody knows that's happened in the last few years, or a couple of years, especially with Geno and what's been here. You probably just be like, yeah, same thing, record aside, even if it's 9-8, whatever. I don't think much would have changed, obviously. And that's why Pete's gone and everyone else is gone, and we have a brand new regime here. So it's definitely an intriguing guy here. And it, like, to your point, this offense is built. And then, yeah, if he takes off, doesn't have to take off where he's leading us all the way to the NFC Championship or anything, but just, hey, here's a guy that we can, extend for a couple more years and not worry about that quote unquote quarterback of the future right away. Because I know you and I had those discussions that people know we've talked about, you're going to draft a guy. And then we realized, look, they're content with what their room is right now with Geno, with Sam. And I think you and I both talked about could have maybe small extensions for both guys, yep. and maybe Sam takes over after. Is a lot of what ifs, but you're in a decent position right now. And especially if that interior line shores up just a little bit, with Scott Huff and doing his thing, and he's got a job on his hands, but it we could have something here. Speaking of that interior and Scott Huff, this is going to surprise some people here, but Scott Huff / Ryan Grubb tied for number 2. We got coaches in on this because there's nobody more intriguing than this new staff, and we're talking offense. We talked about all the players. We just went through a bunch of offensive players. Well, I don't know if we'd be going through. I don't even know if we'd have this list completely without these guys. And what are they going to do? We talked about DK, how he was used last year and the year before, and the year before that. It's kind of like line up outside, where he is. And then that's one guy. We brought up a lot of other guys. And it comes down to these 2 guys right here. So for you, what intrigues you the most about these 2 guys?
I think what intrigues me the most about these 2 guys is they're new to the NFL. Like, I think that's something that we're not getting some retreaded O-line coach from the, Miami Dolphins or the Dallas Cowboys. We're not getting a regurgitated offensive coordinator from somebody or, trying to pluck somebody off somebody else's tree. For once, what I like about this is John Schneider, and I think this is a big thing that people might be missing on the Pete Carroll, John Schneider. Pete was very big on hiring his guys that he knew he was comfortable with. It came from his, connections. John Schneider is more of that adventurer guy that's willing to try new things.
Right.
And I think this was a prime example of it was, why are we always trying to follow somebody else's trend? We're trying to pluck from McVay or Shanahan or whoever. Sure. Let's go be in the forefront again, because that was the one thing I remember at Pete Carroll's opening press conference 14 years ago is we're going to try and do everything better than it's ever been done before. And I think that's one thing that's fallen a little bit off in the last, I'd say, 7 years in Seattle. You stop going and being aggressive in the coaching side of things and pushing that envelope. And I really think now that they've gone and got Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff, they're going to bring a completely fresh set of eyes to the NFL game. They just ran, Scott Huff just had the most, talented O-line in college football. They won the award for that last year as top O-line in college football. Ryan Grubb ran one of the most explosive offenses over the last 2 years in college football. But the thing is that everyone always wants to go to Washington and what they did the last 2 years. Oh, it's going to look the same as what they did at Washington.
Right.
I'm not so sure. I think there's going to be pieces, but Ryan Grubb ran a lot of successful things at Fresno State and Eastern Michigan. And Scott Huff's been a part of different offenses under Chris Peterson and Jimmy Lake's tenure there in Washington. So I think you're going to see this collaboration between these 2 guys. That's really going to be exciting to watch because I think they're going to challenge defenses in the NFL a different way than maybe they've been challenged in the past. Kind of like how when McVay and Shanahan and these guys all came in, they started challenging defenses in different ways. I think this could be that next wave of that with Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff. And that's, for me, why they fall at number 2 on our most intriguing list together.
Yeah, I like it, man. And when you bring up it's one of those things. It's intriguing for a reason because you don't know what they're going to be like in the NFL, but that's also exciting because when you look at it, because we've had guys come up from college who have been successful and maybe hasn't worked out the way you thought it was going to work out all the time, but you kind of look at it and say, okay, you can bring in an old head who's been with the guy's tree and coming up this tree, or he's just kind of getting recycled. You can go that route, or you can say, no, like you say, let's do it our way. Let's try to, start our own tree here and take a chance on these guys that have been super dynamic and creative at the college level and give them a shot here in the NFL. And I think that's exciting to me. I'd rather go that route and say, okay, let's see what they can do here. And so obviously it starts and finishes with them with this offense. And so it just makes sense that they're right here, number 2 on the list. So that brings us to our number one guy on the list here. And I don't know if it's any surprise now since we just brought up Huff and Grub, but number one, our new head coach, Mike McDonald. Number one on the list, man. Number one on the list leading into camp here. What intrigues you the most about Mike?
I think the whole thing intrigues me with Mike McDonald. We have new blood in this building. We have a new identity in this building again in some aspects. Things are going to be different. Things aren't going to be the way they've been for the past 14 years, which nothing was wrong with that. But sometimes you need that change. And I'm very excited to see how Mike McDonald, kind of handles this going forward. How he is as a head coach. He's going to, have to learn these ropes. He's been a coordinator for the last few years. You don't have all the decisions as a coordinator that you do as a head coach. He did mention in his opening press conference, he was going to call the plays for defense. But, you got Andre Dirty here, and then you've got, even Leslie Frazier, who I think that's another guy I think, tying into Mike McDonald here, that's going to be a real big piece for Mike McDonald is Leslie Frazier and his experience as a head coach in the NFL and his years of being in the NFL. I think that was a really big get for Mike McDonald when he came in as head coach. But man, like this defense, how they're going to be deployed. I'm going down August 3rd with my wife to see the mock game. And I'm really upset because we can't obviously film it. There's new rules this year. You can't film the game. Right. But man, I can't wait to come back and do a pod and just talk about all these different things that we're seeing and what that looks like. So I'm going to make sure to bring a notepad and take notes and, just how the things are shaping up because, man, it's a new era. This is exciting again. I honestly, am chomping at the bit now for camp to start because it's is it here yet? Is it here yet? Is it here yet? I know we're only a couple days out here, but I want it here now because I want to see what Mike McDonald and Ryan Grubb and all these players that we've talked about for the past couple of weeks leading into camp here, what it all looks like together. What is this? All these pieces come together. What does this full puzzle look like now going into this 2024 Seahawks season?
Yeah, and everything, all signs are pointing to, this guy kind of having a handle on things. Obviously head coach, you got to be a leader. It's not just about how creative you are and good at defense you are. It's, you got to lead every single guy in that room. But, just through press conferences and just the way he's handled the media, he just seems like he's this guy, and obviously, it's yet to be seen. Let's get into camp and then the season. But what you've seen so far, you feel confident that this was the right hire. And just how young and he is, and like you said, new era. We loved Pete, but yeah, you know what? The message just wasn't getting through. You needed change, and then John goes from oldest head coach to youngest head coach. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and especially when you look at our own division and the other guys that we got a lot of young good coaches in our division. Don't forget about Gannon. New head coach down there, but the focal point with McVay and Shanahan, and now gotta feel like we got our own guy, Mike McDonald here, that can counter these two offenses. It's exciting, man.
Well, man, the one thing I'll say too is I've been obviously since it's been a bit of a down period these last few weeks, since the end of minicamp and everything, and we've been pumping out this content, but I've been really diving in and trying to get as much intel as I can on Mike McDonald and what do people think of Mike McDonald. And a lot of things I'm hearing is people say that, the McVay thing is people take that and don't really give it any, Marlon Humphrey, I believe was on a podcast and they were talking Mike McDonald's not the coach of the Seahawks. What are they getting? They go, there is intense coaches and detail oriented coaches. And then there's Mike McDonald. And they were what do you mean? And he's this dude would lay up in the shower when we were ready to get going and he's still watching film on his phone or on his laptop, taking final notes on the last little bit and seeing if he can get a little bit more of a competitive edge 20 minutes before they're about to walk out in the field to play the game. And he's that's what different kind of level of genius he is when it comes to defense and the way they want to attack teams and the way that Baltimore attack teams and the way he does things. That's what makes it so intriguing now is we had Pete, who was an amazing culture builder That's what Pete was. Pete, by far more than anything, built an amazing culture here in Seattle. Pete also, I think, benefited from having some generational talented players run his very basic concept defense. What I think we've done now, though, is we've gone from maybe a guy that will build a good culture, I think, here in Seattle, like the Harbaughs have, but we're going to a schemer, a guy that is going to put pieces, that's going to cause McVay and Shanahan problems, because guess what? They're not just going to line up in the same look defense every time and play a coverage. They're going to move around. They're going to be like, you look at what he did with Baltimore to Shanahan on Christmas. I think it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. He embarrassed Brock Purdy and that team, like embarrassed them. And that's what I think you're going to get. And it may not happen right away this year.
Sure.
I don't want people to expect, hey, we're going to the NFC Championship this game because we got Mike McDonald. But you know what? Michael Lombardi said it really good on a show. I think it was Pat McAfee's show a couple of days ago. He goes, Seattle was a 9-win team last year with all this talent, and you've added to it with Byron Murphy and all these other pieces that we brought in through the draft and everything. And now you're adding a coach that is highly regarded throughout league circles as probably the best defensive mind in football that they've seen in probably the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And the last guy that kind of got that aura was a Bill Belichick and a Nick Saban when they were with Cleveland and moving to New England, and what Saban did in Alabama. It'd be kind of cool to have that guy now in a division that has for the last few years, truly been led by offense and Shanahan and McVay. Yep. Now we've got, like you said, our counterpunch is Mike McDonald.
Yeah. And, great points, man. And that's why he's number one on this list. It's just a new era. And we're going to really get to see him in action in right around the corner, a couple days, because camp's kicking off. So that's what's super exciting. But it's just, it's like you said, don't expect everything right away. Could happen, but it's things take time. Things take time, and obviously there's still some holes in this team that we're trying to address. Mainly that offensive line that Huff's gonna have some things to definitely work on there. So it's gonna be things don't expect things firing all cylinders, but you get excited about the future, and there's just no reason not to. So there you go, man. Mike McDonald, number one, and that's a top 5 for you right there. So get excited about that. Look at those guys, all the guys that we mentioned. That wraps up our 25 guys. I don't know, any final thoughts here about the list of the 25 guys going into camp?
Hey, you know what, everyone? I really think you've watched this mini series as we've done it. Keep these guys noted down. We may do a kind of a follow-up show halfway through the year at the end of the season. Seeing where these guys are, seeing who did exactly what we thought and was intriguing, who maybe fell off that we, overhyped or didn't really, judge where they could end up. But going into the season, man, I'm honestly excited about this list that we put together. I think it's some really great names. I think they all have their own unique storyline that's going to make them a fun watch for any of the fans out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun doing this list, man. Fun doing this little series, giving you guys just, it was more of giving you guys, just like Bryce brought up, just kind of guys in our own journey, all this kind of stuff. But just, throughout the season, just guys to focus on, be like, okay, yeah, I forgot about this guy, or, yeah, Moffat, let's see if he puts a full season together, whoever it is, that you kind of just take this list and you just kind of roll with it. And yeah, it'd be awesome just kind of, do a halfway episode and just kind of see where we're at, where we kind of on point with these guys, or just are these guys, living up to expectations, whatever you want to look at. But yeah, so it was a fun little series. And guys, camp is right here. So sit back. We're going to dial it in hard here. Camp. And then before you know it, we're going to be kicking off the season here. And then things really, really get going and really get interesting. So that's it, man. That's it for the 25. So look out for us here. We're going to have a lot of episodes coming up during camp. So subscribe, hit the notification button so you're not going to miss any of those episodes. And that is it. That wraps up 25. That's all for us tonight. So go Hawks.
Go Hawks.